and they did not harm, and they did no harm unto Joseph. God had Joseph's back. What does the New Testament say? I believe it's Luke 10:19. Behold, I give unto you power to tread upon serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing by any means shall hurt you. Those serpents and scorpions hurted Joseph. And Joseph called out from the pit of his brother and said unto him, What have I done unto you? What have I done unto you? In what I have sinned? Why do you not fear the Lord concerning me? So why you got no fear of the Lord harming me? Don't you see I'm anointed? Am I not of your bones and flesh? And is not Jacob your father and my father? Why do you do this thing unto me this day? And how will you be able to look to our father Jacob? Or look up to our father Jacob? And he continued to cry out and call unto his brethren from the pit. And he said, O Judah, Simeon, Levi, my brethren, lift me up from the place of darkness in which you have placed me, and come this day and have compassion on me, ye children of the Lord. Trying every way you can to butter their bread to get up out that pit. And the sons of Jacob, my father, and if I have sinned unto you, are you not the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? If they saw an orphan, they had compassion over him. Or one that was hungry, they gave him bread to eat. Or one that was thirsty, they gave him water to drink. Or one that is naked, they covered him with garments. And how then will you withhold your pity from your brother? For I am of your flesh and bones, and I have sinned unto you. Surely you will do this on account of my father. And Joseph spoke these words from the pit, and his brethren would not listen to him, nor incline their ears to the words of Joseph. And Joseph was crying and weeping in the pit. And Joseph said, Oh, that my father knew this day the act which my brethren have done unto me, and the words which they have this day spoken unto me. And all the brethren heard his cries and weeping in the pit. And his brethren went and removed themselves from the pit, so they might not hear the cries of Joseph and his weeping in the pit. So they got away from that pit. They didn't want to feel no guilt whatsoever what they was doing. And they went out and sat on the opposite side about the distance of a bow shot. And they sat there to eat bread. And while they were eating, they held counsel together what was to be done with him, whether to slay him or to bring him back to his father. They were holding a council when they lifted up their eyes and saw, and behold, there was a company of Ishmaelites coming at a distance by the road of Gilead, going down to Egypt. And Joseph said unto him, What gain would it be to us if we were to slay our brother? Peradventure, maybe God will require him from us. This then in the council proposed concerning him, which you shall do unto him. Behold, the company of Ishmaelites going down to Egypt. Now therefore, come, let us dispose of him. Boy, they just plotting to murder him. To them. And let not our hand be upon him. They will lead him along with them. And he will be amongst the people of the land. And he will not put him to death with our own hands. And he proposed, please his brothers, and they did according to the word of Judah. And while they were discoursing about the matter, and before the company of the Ishmaelites had come up to them, 7 trading men of Midian. The Arabs have always been in the slave trade industry. And passed by him, and as they passed by them, their eyes and saw the pit in which Joseph was, what word they use here? What she was in. I'll just put it there because I can't read this word. And they looked, and behold, every species of bird was upon him. And these Midianites ran to the pit to drink water, for they thought that it contained water. And on coming before the pit, they heard the voice of Joseph crying and weeping in the pit. And they looked down into the pit, and they saw, and behold, there was a youth. They saw, and behold, there was a youth of comely appearance. He looked well kept. He didn't look raggedy and disheveled. And behold, there was a youth of comely appearance and well favored. And they called unto him and said, who art thou? And who brought thee hither? And who placed thee in this pit in the wilderness? And they all assisted to raise up Joseph. And he drew him out and brought him. And brought him, and he went away on their journey and passed by his brethren. And he said unto him, why do you do this? To take our servant from us and go to sleep. Excuse me. Take our servant from us and go away. Surely he had placed this youth in a pit because he rebelled against us. And you come and bring him up and lead him away. Now then, and give us back our servant. And the Midianites answered and said unto the sons of Jacob, is this your servant of whom this man attend you? Peradventure maybe you and all your servants, for he more comely and well favored than any of you. Don't spoil Joseph, boy. They said he looked well favored. He could tell he's the favorite of the mom and dad. He said he looked more well favored than all of them. For he is more comely and well favored than any of you. And why do you all speak falsely unto us? Now therefore we will not listen to your words. And they believe, nor attend to you. For we found the youth in the pit in the wilderness, and we took him. And we will therefore go on. And they bossing up to the sons of of Joseph. And all these sons of Judah, all these sons of Jacob approached him and rose up to them and said unto them, give us back our brother, or give us back our servant, and why will you all die? And why will you all die by the edge of the sword? Give us back our brother, we're going to kill you. And the Midianites cried out against them, and they drew their swords and approached to fight with the sons of Levi. All right, start to heat up. And behold, Simeon rose up from his seat against him and sprang upon the ground and drew his sword and approached the Midianites. And he gave a terrible shout before them, so that his shouting was heard at a distance. And the earth shook at Simeon's shouting. And the Midianites were terrified on account of Simeon and the noise of his shouting, and they fell upon their faces and were excessively alarmed. And Simeon said unto them, verily, I am Simeon, the son of Jacob, the Hebrew, who have only with my brother destroyed the city of Shechem and the cities of the Amorites. So shall God moreover do unto thee, that if all your brethren, the people of Midian, and also the kings of Canaan, were to come with you, they could not fight against me. So he boasted, he's a great warrior. Good. Now therefore give us back the youth whom you have taken, lest I give you flesh, at least I give your flesh to the birds of the skies and the beasts of the field. And Midian were more afraid of Simeon. They approached the sons of Jacob. Surely, they want to fight. Wait a minute. And the Midians were more afraid of Simeon, and they approached the sons of Jacob with terror and fright, and with pathetic words, saying, surely you have not said that the young man is your servant, and that he rebelled against you. And therefore, you placed him in his pit, that what will you then do with a servant who rebels against his master? Now therefore, sell him unto us, and we will give you all that you require for him. And the Lord was pleased to do this in order that the sons of Jacob should not slay their brother. And the Midianites saw that Joseph was a comely in appearance and well favored. They desired him in their hearts, were urgent to purchase him from his brethren. And the sons of Jacob hearkened to the Midianites, and they sold their brother Joseph to them for 20 pieces of silver. All right, so remember Christ was sold for 30 pieces of silver. He was sold for 20. And Reuben, their brother, was not with them. And the Midianites took Joseph and continued their journey to Gilead. They were going along the road, and the Midianites repented of what they had done in having purchased the young man. And one said to the other, "What is this thing that we have done in taking his youth from the Hebrews, who is comely in appearance and well favored? Perhaps this youth is stolen from the land of the Hebrews. And why then have we done this thing?" They have serious doubts now and reservations. They have a conscience. In taking this youth from this Hebrews, who was comely in appearance and well favored, perhaps this youth is stolen from the land of the Hebrews. And why then have we done this thing? Perhaps this youth was stolen from the land of the Hebrews. And then have we done this thing? Why have we done this thing? And if we should be sought for and found in our hands, we shall die through him. Stealing somebody's child, penalty of death, even back then. Now surely hardly and powerful men have sold them to us. The strength of one of whom you saw this day. Perhaps they stole him from his land with their might and with their powerful arms, and have therefore sold him out to us for the small value which he gave unto them. And while they was thus discoursing together, they looked, and behold, the company of Ishmaelites, which was coming at first, in which the sons of Jacob saw, was advancing toward the Midianites. And the Midianites said to each other, "Come, let us sell this youth to the company of Ishmaelites, who were coming toward us. And we will take for him the little that he gave for him, and we will be done and delivered from this evil." And they saw, and they did so. And they touched the Ishmaelites. And they reached the Ishmaelites. And the Ishmaelites said, or the Ishmaelites sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, which they had given for him to his brother. And the Midianites went on their way to Gilead. And the Ishmaelites took Joseph, and they let him ride upon one of the camels. And they were leading him to Egypt. So he's with this caravan with the Ishmaelites going to Egypt. And Joseph heard that the Ishmaelites was proceeding to Egypt. And Joseph lamented and wept at this thing, and he was to be far removed from the land of Canaan. And Joseph heard that the Ishmaelites were proceeding to Egypt, and Joseph lamented and wept at this thing, and he was to be far removed from the land of Canaan. From his father he wept bitterly, while he was riding up on the camel. And one of the men observed him, and made him go down from the camel and walk on foot. Notwithstanding this, Joseph continued to cry and weep. And he said, "Oh, my father, my father." And one of the Ishmaelites rose up and smote Joseph upon the cheek. He says, "Man up and stop crying like a woman." And slapped him on the cheek. And one of the Ishmaelites rose up and smote Joseph on the cheek. And still he continued to weep. And Joseph was fatigued in the road and was unable to proceed on account of the bitterness of his soul. And they all smote him and afflicted him in the road, and they terrified him in order that he might cease from weeping. And the Lord saw the affliction of Joseph and his trouble, and the Lord brought down upon those men darkness and confusion, and the hand of everyone that smote him became withered, the hand shriveled up, and they went to each other. What is this? What is this thing that God has done to us in the road? Well, at least they recognized it was God who did it to them. And they knew not what this befell them on account of Joseph. And the men proceeded on the road, and they passed along the road of Ephraim and Rachel, where Rachel was buried. And Joseph reached his mother's grave, and Joseph hastened and ran to his mother's grave and fell upon the grave and wept. And Joseph cried aloud into his mother's grave, and he said, "O my mother, O thou who didst raise me and give me." He's crying on his mother's grave. "Who didst give me birth, awake now, and rise and see thy son. Now he has been sold for a slave, and no one to pity him. O rise now and see thy son." He's bitterly weeping over his grave. He tells his mom, "Rise, give me birth, wake now and rise and see thy son, how he has been sold for a slave, and no one to pity him. Oh, arise and see thy son, weep with me on account of my troubles, and see the heart of my brother, Arise now, my mother, arise, arouse, awake from sleep, or from thy sleep. From me, direct the battles against my brethren. Oh, how have they tripped me? Oh, how have they stripped me of my coat, and sold me already twice for a slave, and separated me from my father, and there is no one to pity me. Arouse and lay thy cause against them before God, and see them, and see whom God will justify in the judgment, and whom he will condemn. Rise, O my mother, rise, awake from thy sleep, and set my father, and see my father, how his soul is with me this day, and comfort him, and ease his heart." And Joseph continued to speak these words, and Joseph cried aloud and wept bitterly upon his mother's grave, and he ceased speaking. And from bitterness of heart he became still as stone upon the grave. And Joseph heard a voice speaking to him from beneath the ground, which answered him with bitterness of heart and with a voice of weeping and praying in these words, my son, Joseph, I have heard the voice of thy weeping and the voice of thy lamentation. I have seen thy priests. I have seen thy tears. I know thy troubles. My son, it grieves me for thy sake, and abundant grief is added to my grief. Now therefore, my son Joseph, my son, hope in the Lord, or hope to the Lord, and wait for him, and do not fear, for the Lord is with thee. He will deliver thee from all troubles. Arise, my son, go down into Egypt with thy masters, and do not fear, for the Lord is with thee. The Lord is with thee, my son. And she continued to speak like unto him these words until Joseph, and she was still. And Joseph heard this, and he wondered greatly at this. And he continued. And Joseph heard this, and he wondered greatly at this. And he continued to weep. And after this, one of the Ishmaelites observed him crying and weeping up on the ground. And his anger was kindled against him. And he drove him from there. And he smote him and cursed him. And nice bunch of slave drivers. And Joseph said, unto the men, may I find grace in your sight to take me back to my father's house? He will give you abundance of riches. And they answered him, saying, Art not thou a slave? And who is thy, and where is thy father? And if thou hadst a father, thou wouldest not already twice have been sold for a slave for so little value. And their anger is still aroused against him. And they continued to smite him and to chastise him. See, Jesus went through that. He was smoked, he was chastised, he was beat all night before he was put on the cross. Joseph was beat, smacked around too. And they answered him, our anger was still aroused against him, and they continued to smite him and to chastise him. And Joseph wept bitterly. He said, "You little spoiled brat, we're going to beat some manhood into you." Sometimes this page sticks, and bear with me. Let me make sure it won't stick. I think this one's stuck. Okay. They have a big deal with him crying. All right, they beat the stuffing out of Joseph. Turn to the next page. And the Lord saw Joseph's affliction, and the Lord again smote these men and chastised them. And the Lord caused darkness to envelop them upon the earth, and the lightning flashed, and thunder roared. And the earth shook at the voice of the thunder and the mighty wind. And the men were terrified and knew not where they should go. And the beasts and camels stood still, and they led them. But they would not go. They smote him, and they crouched upon the ground. And the men said to each other, What is this God has done to us? What are our transgressions? And what are our sins? Our transgression, what are our sins that this thing has been befalling us? They was oblivious to what they were doing to Joseph. And one of them answered and said unto him, perhaps on account of the sin of afflicting the slave, you see. And this thing happened this day to us. Now therefore, implore him strongly to forgive us, and then we shall know on whose account this evil befalleth us. I'm just going over this real quick. See if there was something else I missed. Implore him strongly to forgive us, and then we shall know on whose account this evil befalleth us. And if God shall have compassion over us, then we shall know that all that this cometh to us. They figured it out. They're being punished because of Joseph. And one of them answered and said unto him, perhaps on account of the sin of afflicting the slave, as this thing happened this day to us. And now therefore implore him strongly to forgive us. And then we shall know on whose account this evil befalleth us. And if God have compassion over us, then we shall know that all that this cometh to us on account of the sin of afflicting a slave.